the recipe calls for 1 bunch of fresh kale, but we opted to use the pre-cut kale and just picked around to remove some of the stems. And afterwards, we're just gonna finely chop it. So I'm just gonna bunch up the kale here a little bit so we can gather it all and get it nice and finely chopped. Keep your knife pointed down and just rock it back and forth. Okay, so now we're just gonna measure about 4 cups of the kale that we just chopped and add it to a large mixing bowl. Alright, so once we have our kale in the bowl, we're going to take about 2 limes and squeeze the juice out and just add it to the kale. This is about 1/3 cup if you're measuring the lime juice. So next we're just going to take our tomato. It's about a medium-sized tomato, and we're first just going to chop it in half and remove the seeds from it. I'm just going to do it in this bowl over here. Okay, so now I'm just going to take the slices of tomato we have and just gather them up and cut them into little cubes. We're having all the pieces of veggies that are in the salad are kind of the same size, and you want it to kind of be like that so no one's getting huge chunks of onion or really small pieces of tomato. So the next ingredient we need is parsley, and today we're just going to be using about 1/2 cup. And I'm just going to do what I do with the kale, which is just to bunch it up like so it doesn't fly all over the place. And chop it into like a nice finely So the recipe calls for 2 cups of whole wheat Israeli couscous, but today we're just going to use the whole wheat pearl couscous and measure out 2 cups. That in a bowl. So the recipe calls for 1 medium onion, and I already have this chopped in half. So we're just gonna slice the edge off because we don't need that. And then cut the onion horizontally first. And we're doing this so we can score the onion and make it easier on ourselves to cut. Get into nice small pieces. So the recipe calls for 4 cloves of garlic. So what I'm going to do here is take 1 piece of garlic and just use my knife to kind of crush it. You don't want to slam it down because that could be dangerous. So just press and crush the clove of garlic down like that, and that way it's flat and you can easily just run your knife through like so. Recording. Okay, so I just added my red onion here to the vegetable stock, and next we're just going to add our spices. So I have about 1 teaspoon of ground curry. I'm going to add another 1/2 teaspoon of ground cumin and 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. And today we're using sweet paprika. And lastly, we're just going to add those 4 cloves of garlic that we chopped earlier. Smelling really good. We're just going to bring this to a boil and then add the couscous. Okay, so the recipe calls for about 6 tablespoons of fresh basil, but we don't have fresh basil today, so we're just going to use some dried basil. And for about 1 tablespoon of fresh basil, it's about 1/2 teaspoon of dried. So we're just going to throw in a couple teaspoons of it in there. Okay, and there you have it, Israeli couscous and kale salad.